Yoga and asana. Asana literally means seat. It's the seat of our awareness. And Patañjali, in the Yoga Sūtra, he defines asana as sthira sukham asanam. In other words, asana, as the seat of yoga, is a seat, is a space, is a stance, is a posture, is an attitude that is all at once sthira on the one hand and sukham on the other hand. What do these words mean? Sthira means steady. You can see the influence of the Sanskrit coming through here. Sta, this Sanskrit root's given us all these words like still, stable, steady, stand. So sthira means the asana of yoga is a stable place. But it's also a sukham place. Now, kham literally means space. Su, as a prefix, means agreeable, pleasant. So, sthira, steady, and sukham, easeful. So we've got steady and easeful. And this is the classic definition in the yoga tradition of asana. What do we notice here? Now, one thing that I sometimes point out, or people often notice, is that it seems a little bit like a contrast or a pair of opposites. We've got steady and relaxed. So steady, easeful. It seems like two pairs of opposites. But the asana of yoga is a place that is all at once steady and easy. In other words, yogasana, the seat of yoga, is a place not just where steadiness and easefulness meet and bring out each other's complementary potential, so the steadiness can be easeful and the easefulness can be sustained. Because if you think about it, the only real genuine steadiness has to have some easefulness in it or it can't be sustained. And the only real easefulness has to have a certain steadiness or we can't really relax into it. So yogasana is that place where easefulness and steadiness meet and really get to know each other thoroughly, intimately, so they can support each other in a dynamic equilibrium. But more than that, as well as just being the balance of steadiness and easefulness, or ha, contraction, and ta, release, of engagement and relaxation, asana also describes that space in which all the different pairs of opposites have been brought into a place of mutual complementarity, if that makes sense. So the differing forces have been brought into this beautiful dynamic equilibrium, and that is yogasana. So we can see here that this is a way of describing the state of yoga. So asana, yes, it does refer to this body of yoga practice that we can do when we take meditative seats or when we move through different shapes in space. But when we move through different shapes in space, there's the idea that we're training ourselves in the ways of bringing our body-born conscious system into a state of dynamic equilibrium. We're working with the forces of nature in an honest way, with presence and awareness, to cultivate a situation, a state in which easefulness is sustainable. When we come back to the Sanskrit definition in Patanjali's Yoga Sūtra, sthira sukham asanam, it's interesting to note as well the kind of root meaning of this word sukham. Kham means space, and su as a prefix means good, agreeable, pleasant. So sukham, a good space. So a good space that is sustainable is the seat of yoga or yogasana. But kham, space, in the Indian tradition, space is associated with which sense? So all of the elements in the Indian system, they're all associated with the senses. So there's the earth has fragrance, water has taste, sweet taste. Fire, it's bright, you can see it's associated with form and shape. The wind or the air, you can feel it on your skin, it's associated with the sense of touch, which leaves the realm of sound and hearing associated with the space. And the quantum physicists last century came to the same conclusion as the great research scientists of the Indian tradition did thousands of years ago, that the space we live in is not empty but contains movement. It contains pulsation and it contains vibration. So we live in a field of sound. We live in a field of frequency and vibration. So Sthira Sukham Asanam means basically to practice Sthira Sukham Asanam means to practice cultivating a state of sustainable good vibrations in the field of our embodied experience. So this is Yogasana. It's not just making shapes in space, it's making shapes in space that train us in the ways of cultivating deep, sustainable harmony through all parts of our being. And so there's the idea in the Indian system that this body is a microcosm of the whole universe. But also, any aspect of yoga practice can become a microcosm of the whole practice. So, when we think of Yogasana, Asana, as it's presented in Patañjali, in the Yoga Sūtra, it's presented when Patañjali starts to outline or delineate and elaborate the aṣṭāṅga yoga, the 8 limbs of what is sometimes also referred to as Raja Yoga, the royal path of yoga. And these 8 limbs, they are 8 members of the same body of practice. So they're all mutually complementary. They all support each other's deepening and unfolding. One cannot really practice any one of them without the others. They all support each other. For example, the first limb is yama, how we harness our energy to cultivate harmony in our lived reality. Yama also involves regulating the way we use our energy for the sake of this deeper cohesion and deeper harmony. Niyama, other behavioral principles to help us cultivate harmony. Yama niyama is how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to others, how we use our energy. Now, if we relate to ourselves and others and use our energy skillfully, how do we feel in the field of our physical being and in the physical body? A bit more steady, a bit more easy. So to sit, to stand, to inhabit a posture or an attitude that is Sthira Sukham is much easier when we work with Yama Niyama. The more we become established in Yama Niyama, the more spontaneously the state of asana arises and roots more deeply. Similarly, the 4th limb, pranayama, the extension of the life force, the ability of our system to ingest prana in such a way that it can move and circulate very freely and efficiently through the organism. When I'm using my energy skillfully, when my conscience is clear and I can rest in peace at the end of the day, when the channels of my physical body are open and interconnected and energy and information can circulate freely, it becomes much easier for the breath to flow easefully and for the energy to flow through this system much more efficiently. So the prana is extended in pranayama. The breath naturally becomes more easeful, more subtle. With less breath, we get more energy. With less food, we get more energy. When we're exposed to good quality air and sunlight, just a little, and it gives us this tremendous boost, is the idea. The more that we use our energy skillfully, the more that we are sitting, standing, moving in a sustainably easeful space, our use of prana becomes subtler, more efficient. And so it gives us more resources to engage with the magnificence of life and to tune in to the depth of life, to our deeper self. Pratyahara, the turning of the sense powers back to their source. So when we're inhabiting a subtle, grounded, balanced place of awareness, it becomes much easier to offer our sense experiences back to the source. When we're feeling frazzled and we're feeling a sense of lack, perhaps greedily we chase these external sense experiences to try and fill that void. But when we feel steady and easeful in ourself, then it becomes easier to practice offering every experience back into the fire of conscious awareness, back into the light of our consciousness, if that makes sense. Then, when we're practicing pratyahara, of course, the relatively speaking internal limbs of dharana, dhyana and samadhi, they also become easier. Dharana, concentrated awareness. When our system is operating easefully, coherently, efficiently, when we feel a sense of ease, it's much easier to concentrate our awareness. Maybe you've noticed if you feel a sense of dis-ease, if you're feeling unwell, it can be much harder to concentrate the awareness. So when everything's in a state of balance and cohesion, dharana, the capacity to orient the powers of our awareness in a focused way, is heightened. We've got more, that becomes more available to us, let's say. That flows more easily. And when we can concentrate our awareness in a focused way for a sustained period, then emerges dhyana, the meditative state of flowing, centered, concentrated, meditative flowing awareness. When the flow of meditative awareness is then sustained, can emerge the experience of samadhi, or yoga, this integration of the powers of our awareness. So hopefully that demonstrates or gives a sense of how each of these limbs all work together. If, for example, I start with pratyahara, I start by paying close attention to all my sense experiences, by giving gratitude for them. When I'm eating, really being aware of my capacity to smell, to taste, to savor the texture and the colors and all the different things about the food, and I eat it with great presence. Maybe this also becomes a pranayama practice, because when I eat like that, I extract more nutrition from the food. And when I make a habit of eating like that, I rehabilitate the amazing intelligence in my senses to help me identify which is the right food for me, in what dose, for example. And when I ingest the right type of food in the right amount at the right time, when I'm tuned to all these intuitive intelligences, how is the seat of my body feeling? When I digest easily, it's easier to feel sthira sukham. When I'm feeling easeful and stable, grounded, but energy can flow easily, it's also then easier to practice yama niyama because I feel more easy. So it's much more, it's less likely that I will look to fleeting externals to try to bring me some satisfaction or some feeling of easefulness. So all of the 8 limbs are mutually complementary. And when we practice yoga asana in this broader way, we're really practicing aṣṭāṅga yoga, we're practicing Raja yoga. Another thing about asana is that it's the seat of meditation. Patanjali says when one becomes established in that state of sthira sukham, of asana, then one is no longer perturbed by the comings and goings of the pairs of opposites. Why not? Because one has got used to staying connected to the center even as the pairs of opposites come and go. So ordinarily it's quite easy as a human being to swing from one extreme to another. And perhaps we enjoy parts of the extremes, but there's also like a crash, or there's a place where we feel a bit frazzled or something like that. The idea is, in asana, in that state of sthira sukhamasana, we can navigate the ups and downs of life in a much more resilient, robust way, because we are tuning into this capacity that we all carry for dynamic equilibrium. And this is really the active seat of yoga. It's not a fixed point, because we live in a dynamic realm. So sthira sukhamasana, it's not like, oh, I bring myself into this perfect balance of steady easefulness. Like, for example, let's say there's a posture like headstand, and you just find the balance. It's like, no, it's actually, there's all the time some slight little movement, there's proprioception happening in the system. It's dynamic. Stillness is an illusion. If we do a standing meditation, or you stand in samasthitihi and you observe the body, you notice there's so much little movement happening all the time. So we live in a realm of dynamism and change. And so Yogasana is that stable seat. It's like we're making our vehicle into, like one of my teachers, he said, the yogin, if his friends come to pick him up in the bullock cart with wooden wheels, he's happy. If his friends come to pick him up in the Rolls-Royce top of the range car, he's happy. Why? Because his system has the top spec shock absorption built in. Why? Because when we bring our innate capacity to harmonize these pairs of opposites into this mature state, when we become established in Sthira Sukham Asanam, when we become less susceptible to being knocked here and there by the comings and goings of the pairs of opposites. Why is this? It's because we are more established in our Atman, in that essential essence of our being. The essential part of us that is not perturbed by the comings and goings. When we're identified with the body and our thoughts and our societal or familial or cultural identities, these things can easily be buffeted by the winds of change that are part of life. But as we become more attuned to the essence, to our essential self, sometimes referred to as Atman in Sanskrit, that place is a place, this is the deathless place, the place beyond fear. So when we're practicing asana, that's really what we are tuning to. Now, when we think about tuning, I think this is also another useful thing to mention when we're speaking about asana. Maybe some of you play musical instruments, or I think most, like, for example, think of a guitar. Now, maybe you know how to play the guitar, maybe not. I am not a guitarist. I've been shown a few basics, but I have some friends who are very, very accomplished guitarists. So my friend John, for example, singer-songwriter, beautiful guitar player, if he gives me his perfectly tuned guitar and I just strum it, what sound does it make? He's tuned it perfectly. Ah, beautiful, beautiful sound. Even if I don't know how to play, my friend who does know how to play has tuned it perfectly, gives it to me, I strum it, oh, beautiful sound. If though, then he leaves me his guitar, and it's April in England when I'm recording this video today. This morning it was a hard frost, it froze last night. This afternoon it was 20 degrees, very sunny day. This time of year there's this big temperature differential, or there can be. I leave the guitar for a few days. The temperature goes up and down, the humidity goes up and down. What happens to the strings? When the guitar is perfectly tuned, there is this beautiful balance of sthira and sukham, of steadiness, like let's say tension, and sukham, easefulness, let's say there's enough looseness that they can sound freely. So there's this lovely balance of the tension and the ease, the spacious, relaxed place. When the strings are in that balance of sthira sukham, then they can resound in a beautiful, good vibration, a harmonic vibration. But I leave the guitar, I neglect it for a few days, and I pick it up, and I'm a complete beginner, I don't know anything about guitars. I think the instrument's going to make the same harmonious sound as last time. I strum it, it's all discordant. Because the strings have loosened in different degrees. So there's no longer that integrated balance of sthira sukham. There's no longer that harmony of the different pairs of opposites in the different strings that help the body of that guitar resonate in a very beautiful way. Just 6 strings. Obviously some guitars have fewer or more strings, but talking of the basic standard classical or folk guitar with 6 strings, just 6 strings. How many strings does this instrument have? So many. So the idea in yoga, this body, it's like our house. Now, I imagine, we all know what it means to live in a house. What do we know about housework? It never ends. Even, let's say you do a very thorough cleaning of the house. Even as you're putting away the cleaning instruments, you create fresh dust and fresh dirt to clean the next time around. Housework is a never-ending task. Similarly, looking after the cleanliness and the harmony of this house is something that requires constant, steady effort. And this is Patanjali's definition of yoga practice in the Yoga Sūtra. He says, yoga practice is the effort, the engaged effort for the sake of steadiness. And further, that effort for the sake of steadiness needs to be long-term, uninterrupted, attended to with true presence and a spirit of commitment and devotion. Then that practice can become firmly rooted. So, if we think of this vehicle of our body, this amazing instrument of consciousness with which we experience life and reality, how many strings does it have? So many. It's like a great orchestra. Now, if you go and see a great orchestra play, what do they do before they play the first movement? They spend a bit of time tuning up. And let's say they're playing 2 or 3 movements in the evening's recital. Between every movement, they tune up again. They're expert musicians. They've been playing for decades. They've been playing together for a long time. But still, regularly, they have to retune the instruments. And so there's the idea that Yogasana is not just something that you do once and achieve it. Yogasana is something that we cultivate all the time. And not just when we are doing our yoga posture practice on the mat or wherever we like to do it. There's the idea that the time we spend doing Yogasana techniques on the mat or wherever we like to do it, I like to do it outside a lot more actually, but when we're working with those techniques, we're actually training ourselves for the rest of the day. So sometimes I've seen advertised advanced yoga asana workshop, and we'll be doing hand balances or whatever that, To me, it's a very strange idea of an advanced yoga asana. The advanced yoga asana is when we can stay connected, when we can stay integrated, when we can be unperturbed in the face of the swirling pairs of opposites in life, when we can stay in that place of dynamic equilibrium and harmony, even in the face of the unexpected challenges of life. That's when we become an advanced yogasana practitioner. And the different practice techniques that we work with in the physical body, they're just tools to help train us in the ways of deepening our capacity for integrated awareness through all of the strings or instruments of this amazing, miraculous bodily vehicle. So yogasana, for sure, it's a whole body of yoga practice. But the intention of yogasana is to help us tune in more deeply to this amazing body born with an E on the end, as in carried in the body, housed in the body. This vehicle's capacity to help us deepen our connection to that integrated state of yoga.